Imagine waking up one day and discovering that your country doesn't exist. No borders, no flag, no government, just erased. It sounds like science fiction, but in 1962, something almost exactly like this happened in Africa. A nation appeared on world maps and then vanished overnight. The story behind it is unbelievable, but every single piece is true. The year is 1962. Africa is in the middle of massive political change. Many nations are gaining independence from colonial powers, and world maps are changing faster than ever. Amid all this, mapmakers suddenly notice something strange. A brand new country printed clearly on maps and globes, a country that, until then, had never existed. No one remembered voting for it, no one had declared independence, yet it was there, on official atlases, government maps, even in the offices of the United Nations. Diplomats were baffled, cartographers scratched their heads, and locals insisted they remembered living under its flag, singing its anthem, and paying taxes to its government. But historians had no record at all. Nothing, not a single founding document. It was as if the country had materialized out of thin air. The people living in the area were confused. Some remembered the excitement of independence, new leaders, new laws, new opportunities. Others swore they had never been governed by anyone other than the colonial power. Meanwhile, map makers were under pressure. Atlases had already been printed. News outlets began reporting on this mysterious new country, raising questions across the globe. The United Nations was asked for records and came up empty-handed. Every attempt to locate an official declaration of independence or founding charter failed. No government files, no historical reference, nothing. It was like the country existed for just a moment in time, before disappearing again. How could a country simply vanish? Curious historians began digging into colonial archives. They looked for old paperwork, memos, telegrams, anything that might explain the anomaly. Then, hidden in a forgotten filing cabinet, they found it, a single folder that explained everything. Inside were two nearly identical sets of documents. One set recognized the region as an autonomous territory under colonial supervision. The second recognized it as a completely independent country. The difference between the two? One simple mistake, a clerical error, a double filing. That was all it took to create an entirely new nation, legally, on paper, for almost a year. The accidental filing meant that for 11 months the so-called country legally existed. Map makers printed it. International agencies listed it. Governments argued over it. No one realized it was never supposed to exist. The mistake went unnoticed until bureaucrats carefully reviewed the paperwork. Then, in a quiet correction, the country was erased. Just like that. Think about it. A nation with citizens, potential laws, maybe even imagined elections, existed for nearly a year. And yet no one ever invaded it. No war ended it. No revolution toppled it. It simply disappeared because someone noticed a typo in the filing system. For the locals, it was surreal. Some remembered participating in events that technically never happened. Others wondered if the memories themselves were illusions, remnants of what could have been. Historians call this phenomenon a legal ghost, a country that existed in law and on maps, but nowhere else. It's a reminder of just how fragile the concept of nations can be, and how much our reality depends on paperwork, approvals, and, well, human error. One missing stamp, one misplaced signature, and history can shift dramatically. This story isn't just a curiosity. It's part of a larger pattern during Africa's post-colonial era. Borders were often arbitrary, names were disputed, new nations appeared and disappeared faster than the press could keep up. But even among these real geopolitical shifts, the story of this accidental country stands out. It's a legal anomaly, a bureaucratic ghost, a moment where human error literally created a new country, and then erased it without a single shot fired, without a single treaty signed. And the most astonishing part? This country didn't fail. It wasn't conquered. It didn't dissolve due to political unrest. It vanished because someone checked the records. Someone corrected a filing mistake. And in that single action, history erased an entire nation from the maps of the world. A country that existed only because of a typo. 11 months of legal existence, gone in the blink of an eye. A cautionary tale about the power of paperwork, bureaucracy, and how fragile our notions of reality really are. So next time you glance at a map, remember, the lines and names you see are not just geography. They're the result of decisions, mistakes, and human error. Some countries die in wars, some die in revolutions, and some die in the office printer. If you want more unbelievable true stories from history, hit subscribe and join us as we explore the world's forgotten, mysterious, and honestly shocking past. A country created by a typo, erased by a correction. Have you ever wondered if the maps we trust are telling the whole truth? They seem so certain, but what if a country simply vanished from them? This is the story of Bandaland, an African nation that disappeared, not from the earth, but from the world's digital maps. One day, Bandaland was gone from GPS, atlases, and databases. Its people, culture, and history became invisible to the world. The cause? Not war or collapse, but a digital error, a glitch in a line of code. In our rush to digitize, we created a new vulnerability. A single mistake could erase a nation. Bandaland's vanishing is a warning about our dependence on digital representations of reality. Africa's borders, mostly drawn by colonial powers, are recent and often arbitrary. These lines, created far from the continent, cut through communities and shaped today's political landscape. The story of Bandaland's disappearance is set against this backdrop, a history of power, politics, and fragile lines on a map. It's a reminder, our understanding of the world is only as strong as the systems we trust, and sometimes those systems fail. To grasp Bandaland's fragility, we must revisit the late 1800s, when European powers divided Africa at the Berlin Conference. Colonial borders were drawn with little regard for Africa's people or geography, just lines for control and resources. These arbitrary borders split communities and forced rivals together, sowing seeds of future conflict. Early maps were imprecise, based on rushed surveys and second-hand accounts. When independence came, new African nations inherited these flawed maps and the disputes they caused. As the world digitized, old errors were simply transferred into new systems. Bandaland itself was a product of this colonial cartography, a compromise between competing interests. Its existence depended on lines drawn long ago, now digitized and vulnerable to modern mistakes. The seeds of Bandaland's digital disappearance were sown in this messy history. Bandaland's borders made rare sense, shaped by the Bamba Mountains and Koro River Delta, natural barriers that defined its people. The Bandanese developed a unique identity, distinct from their neighbors, protected by geography. Colonial powers found it practical to administer the valley as one unit, formalizing boundaries that had existed for generations. After independence, Bandaland became a peaceful, landlocked nation, proud but largely forgotten by the world. Its isolation was both a shield and a weakness, safe from conflict but easy to overlook. With no major resources or global influence, Bandaland was a low priority for international attention. When the digital era struck, few were watching. The world's neglect, once a blessing, became a curse. Bandaland's quiet existence made it vulnerable to being erased with a keystroke. Invisibility on the world stage meant invisibility in the digital age, and when it mattered most, Bandaland was almost forgotten. Bandaland's disappearance began in the server rooms of Geodata Solutions, which maintained a global digital mapping database. In 2025, a massive update aimed to fix old border issues. Under pressure, a junior cartographer accidentally deleted Bandaland's digital borders. The system didn't flag the loss of a small, obscure country. The change was approved and went live. Overnight, Bandaland vanished from digital maps. Its territory was absorbed by neighbors, its name erased. At first, no one noticed. Flights, shipments, and navigation systems simply adapted to the new, incorrect borders. The error wasn't malicious, just a perfect storm of human error, automation, and oversight failure. But the consequences were about to become very real. A nation of 3 million was rendered cartographically non-existent. The world's digital eyes had blinked, and a country was gone. The first signs of trouble came from finance and tech. Bank transfers to Bandaland failed. Its country code was invalid. Online shoppers couldn't find Bandaland in drop-down menus. Programmers' code broke when referencing the missing country. At the UN, Bandaland's delegation vanished from official lists. The ambassador was baffled. His emails bounced as unrecognized. The story broke when a travel blogger in Bandaland posted a viral video. "I'm in a country that doesn't exist," journalists investigated. Geodata Solutions denied any problem, but evidence mounted. Bandaland was gone from trusted maps. Behind the scenes, panic set in. Engineers scrambled to trace the error. Bandaland's neighbors issued statements. They hadn't annexed any territory. The world agreed Bandaland existed, but digital infrastructure insisted otherwise. The situation was surreal, a country erased by a glitch, its reality denied by the systems everyone relied on. The confusion was spreading, and the consequences were just beginning. Bandaland's existence was now a question of data, not geography, and the world was watching. For Bandaland's 3 million citizens, the error was devastating. International banking froze, remittances and imports stopped. ATMs and credit cards failed. Medical supplies and aid were blocked. Bandaland's name no longer recognized by global systems. Students abroad lost visas. Families were cut off. The digital erasure became a real-world blockade, isolating the nation. "We are here!" became a rallying cry as Bandanese fought to prove their existence. The government pleaded with tech companies, sending paper maps to embassies, a desperate analog fight for digital recognition. Bandaland's disappearance threw international diplomacy into chaos. At the African Union and UN, maps showed new, incorrect borders. Diplomats argued against their own data. The Bandanese ambassador held up his passport. "Who are you going to believe? A piece of paper, a human heart, or a faulty algorithm?" The crisis exposed how much nations rely on private tech companies for their very existence. No international body could force a fix. Governments could only pressure Geodata Solutions. Meanwhile, opportunists exploited the confusion. Smuggling and illegal resource extraction surged in Bandaland's borderlands. The cartographic void became a security vacuum. The crisis was no longer just about maps. It threatened the stability of an entire region. The world learned digital lines are the bedrock of order and security. When they vanish, chaos follows. Restoring Bandaland was slow and painstaking. Geodata Solutions CEO publicly apologized, shifting the narrative from disputed territory to recognized nation. An international task force used treaties, paper maps, satellite images, and ground surveys to re-establish Bandaland's borders. On December 20, 2025, a global update restored Bandaland to digital maps. Cheers erupted in Bamba City as the country's name reappeared on screens worldwide. The ordeal left scars, economic damage, shaken trust, and a global wake-up call. The UN passed a resolution on digital cartography, and nations invested in their own mapping agencies. The lesson was clear. A nation's existence now depends on secure, accurate digital representation. Bandaland's fight was a warning for the world. In the digital age, reality itself can be rewritten with a keystroke. Bandaland's story is a modern parable. Maps don't just describe reality, they create it. The lines on a map define identity, opportunity, and power. Today, software engineers and data analysts wield the power once held by kings and colonizers. The Bandaland incident reminds us, technology is a tool, not an infallible truth. Our reliance on digital systems makes our reality fragile. When maps break, it's not just technical, it's a crack in the foundation of global cooperation. Accurate maps are essential for peace and stability. If a country can be erased by mistake, how real are our borders? They exist because we agree they do, in treaties, code, and our minds. The lesson. These lines only matter if we protect their meaning together. In the end, it's our shared responsibility to ensure the world's maps reflect a reality that is just, accurate, and true for all.